In this brief Excel tutorial, we're going to explore how to calculate the average, standard deviation, and scatter plots with error bars for data. So first, let's start with this set of data that I have here. I have a set of trials and speed associated with those trials. And let's say I want to calculate the average of this data. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to write average in one of my cells here so that I can keep track of what I'm calculating. And then the way we calculate things in Excel is we find a blank cell and we hit the equal sign. That signals to Excel that we're going to use a formula. And then we type the formula that we want to use. So Excel has a number of built-in functions, and average is one of them. And so I'll type average and a parentheses. And it tells me down here the format for using average. And so then I put the numbers that I'm going to average together. I don't actually have to write all of those. I can just click and drag the numbers I want to average there, close my parentheses, and hit enter, and it'll calculate the average for me. So there we go. Now I have the average. Now let's say I want to calculate the standard deviation of this average to get a sense of how large the spread is in my data. And so let me put a title here for standard deviation. Again, I'll hit equals for a formula, and then I'll start typing what I think the built-in name is for standard deviation. So that would be STD. Oh, yep, there we go. We've got some standard deviation formulas here. And there's a variety of them here, depending on different ways of calculating standard deviation. We're going to use the one stdev.s, standard deviation.sample, dev.s. So that's the function we're going to use, and we'll do open parentheses. Again, I'll select my data, close parentheses, hit enter, and calculates the standard deviation for me. Finally, I might want to calculate the standard deviation in the mean. So there isn't really a built-in function for that, and so instead I'll type equals, and then I'll click on my standard deviation to use that data for this calculation, but I also need to divide by the square root of the number of data points that I have. So I'll put divide by square root. That's a built-in function in Excel. Again, open parentheses, square root of, I have 5 data points, so I'll just type in 5, end parentheses, and hit enter. And so then it calculates the standard deviation in the mean for this data. Okay, so let's say I have 2 data points for 2 different masses. I have 2 different speeds with 2 different standard deviations, and I want to calculate a t-prime test between these. I want to determine how close these 2 data points are to each other. So I can do that with a formula in Excel. Again, I'll type equals sign, and then I'll do parentheses, and I want to subtract the 2 speeds. So I'll click one, put a minus sign, and then click the other one, and end my parentheses. And then I have to divide by the square root of the sum of the squares of the standard deviations. So I'll do square root, and then open parentheses, select one of the standard deviations by clicking on it, square, and then select the other one by clicking on it, square, and don't forget to close your parentheses. And then it tells me the t-prime test result between these 2 pieces of data. Okay, finally, if I have a set of data that I might want to see plotted in a scatter plot like this, so I have a different set of data for several different masses and different speeds in meter per second. Let me drag that column over so we can see the unit. And so what I might do is to make a scatter plot, I'll select my data, click insert up here at the top, and then go over to these charts and click the one that looks like a scatter plot and pick scatter here. And it generates then a scatter plot of the data with the mass on the horizontal axis and the speed on the vertical axis. We should really label our axes whenever we make a plot. And so to do that, we'll go up here to the upper left-hand corner where it says Add Chart Element and Axis Titles, and click the primary horizontal. So when I click on that, I can just now type, and it'll put in the title for me. So that's mass with units of grams. I should always include my units. And then I'll do the same thing for the vertical axis. Again, primary vertical. And then I'll just type speed, meter per second units, hit enter, and there it is. Okay, so I have some data here, but I would like to show the error bars, the standard deviations, on this plot as well, so I can see how large the standard deviations are relative to how the data is changing with mass. And so to do that, I'll once again go up to this Add Chart element up here. I'll click on that. I'll go down to Error Bars. And then there's some different options we have for error bars. None of those are going to work for us, so we're going to go to More Error Bar Options. That brings up a sidebar over here. Just move over a little bit. On this sidebar, we're just going to go all the way down to the bottom where we can select the amount of the error. And right now it's just giving a fixed value of 1 for those errors. But we really want to specify what that error is. So we'll click on Custom and Specify Value. It brings up this handy box. And we can choose different error bars for the positive and negative error. In this case, it's going to be the same. So to select it, we're just going to click on this box right next to the blank cell, and then click and drag our standard deviations, and it's then going to associate each of these standard deviations with each of the data points. And we'll do the same thing for the negative, since the negative is the same as the positive error in this case, and click OK. And there, it inserted our uncertainties and our errors as error bars into our plot. Excel also automatically gives the horizontal error bars, and we can see that the amount that's giving them is a fixed amount of 1, but we don't really have any error associated with our mass measurement at the moment, and so we could just select that by clicking on that error bar and then pressing delete, and that removes that error bar for us, so we're only left with our vertical error bars.